Hey guys, we're having a video today on how to replace the battery on one of those ECX Kickflips. Super small scale cars. Recently they've been selling in lots as non-working. And the reason they're non-working is that the batteries that they came in, they're fixed installed, can't be swapped like other cars' batteries. They go bad over time. This is kind of like new old stock. I think they came out in 2014 or so. Pretty cool little thing, and I'm going to walk you through how to replace the battery and make them working again. So here's one of these little kick flips. That's how they come in the box, new sealed. And yeah, we're going to walk through how to repair one of those. So they come as expected with all the stuff that usually come with. Batteries, instructions, and the car. Has little foam tires, it's pretty neat. Little body clips, it's all super tiny. And on the bottom here should be the remote. So, remote is in here. Very basic. Not proportional steering, so it's just on or off. However, the throttle is proportional, so that's a good thing. Has a trim adjustment, even has a fast and a slow speed adjustment. And then up here is the button to turn it on and off, and also to charge it, because the charging happens via a little cable that is part of the remote. It's similar to the, I think Team Associated makes those small ones that charge through the remote. Yeah, but 99% of these come and the batteries are bad, so we're gonna see if we can swap the battery on this one and make it go again. So it's zip tied to the box. That's the thing. And yeah, let's get into it. So at the bottom here, you see this on-off switch, and here would be the charge port that the cable from the remote plugs into to charge it. Yeah, it's all very basic. So this is too small for my hand, so I'm actually using tweezers to get the body pins out. Don't need this anymore. And then what you see here is basically the rest of the car. The rear has some form of sprung suspension, no dampers, and the front appears to be just either plastic flexing or no suspension at all. So what we're going to do, the battery's underneath here. Take these 4 screws out. Show it with the screwdriver. These 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the top plate comes off and shows the electronics, and underneath there is the battery. I went on Amazon and bought replacement batteries, and we'll see how that goes. 1, 2. So now the top plate also holds the rear suspension in place, which is a bit of a bummer, because once you take the top plate off, the rear suspension kind of falls apart with it. But well, right, so this wiggles loose. And that's that. So now you see the control board. There's a bind button here that has a little bit of a button from the outside. Can be pushed without taking it apart if you ever need to bind it. And yeah, what you'll see is here's the rear suspension part and the motor cables. Let's hope these don't fall off. They're very tiny. And there's one screw that holds this board in place. And I'll put it back together the way it was. Pay attention, this one looks a little bit different than the other ones. So now, here's the board, as I said. It kind of comes off. There's one locating pin. It comes off like this, and then here you'll see the battery. Tiny little 1 cell, 60 milliamp hour, and I haven't checked this one, but so far the other ones that I looked at, they're all bad. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to take the battery off, but leave the leads on, and I'll explain why in a minute. So this is the battery that came with it, and I bought on Amazon replacement batteries, and you know, tiny little bit bigger dimensionally than the old ones. They're a little bit too wide, which means that they don't fit into the cavity that the original battery was in. It's supposed to go in here, but it's too wide, it doesn't fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the leads long and just put it all back together and put the battery up on top here like this. I have the leads going here. So that is the plan. That's why I leave the leads long on the control board. And now I'm going to just solder on the new battery and then put it all back together and see if it works. So it's always a good thing when you work on this to remember which way the motor leads come on, because they do tend to fall off the more you wiggle it around. But for now, let's solder on the new battery. And as always, with the work with the life battery, be careful. I want to have the leads touch. So the way I always do is I do one at a time. Just take the insulation off just a tiny little bit like this. I have this handy little holder where I can tin the ends of the cable before I put them both together. And taking one off at a time greatly reduces the risk of the mirror, the black and the red ever touching. So there's that on the battery. Now I'm going to do the same on the car. Oh, you can see this. Yeah, I have my soldering iron set to a fairly low temperature. I don't want to melt away any of the tiny little cable insulation here. It doesn't need a lot of heat. So we got that. Then I'm going to use a little bit of a shrink tube to put over the repair section. So I'll slide this on first. It's probably a lot more than I needed, but now it's all so tiny. You have to really see if I can get everything oriented right to be able to work on it. It's all very, very tiny stuff. So maybe this works. Hold this in place like this. So this is now connected. Shrink tube. I have this little handy tool. It's actually from the art supply. I think they use it to shrink wrap gift baskets or something, but it works well for me to do shrink tubes. That's number 1. And now we're going to do number 2, the black side. So these cables are so small, you can just remove the insulation with the finger. Don't need a tool. So the same here, do the tin the leads a little bit. Like that. Do the same on the battery. That. Take a little bit more though. Take a little bit more of the shrink tubing. Put it on before we solder the 2 sides together, like so. And then put the negative side too. This on here. Took too much of the insulation off, so I'm going to trim this a little bit. That. So now we got that connected as well. Always give it a little bit of a tug to make sure it's bonded properly. And now get the shrink tubing on there, shrink it. Okay, so new batteries in, and now the part of putting the whole thing back together. And again, but it would have been great. I would have got the right batteries and it would fit into the right cavity the way they were, but it didn't. So we have to improvise. So again, this board goes in like this. And I plan on putting the battery up on top of it. So I'm going to have to see of this cover here to leave an opening for the battery leads to come out of. I think since it kind of wants to come out the right side of the car here, I'm going to route it underneath and make it come out the front somewhere. There's the suspension. I think I'm we're just going to do a little bit of a cut right here. Make a little bit of a notch for the cables to fit through. See how that goes. Like this. It's not a high quality operation, so just a bit of a notch. For the battery cables to come out of. So now the board goes back in. The way it was. And obviously the board has the on-off switch on it and the charge port, so those will have to go through those openings in the chassis. So try to line that all up. It is so tiny. Yeah, I realize it probably looks super clumsy, but hey. So I work on pretty much all scales of RC, and this is a lot more challenging than some of the larger scale stuff. So the on-off switch doesn't want to go through here. What the hell? So I'm trying to show you guys what the hassle is. So the on-off switch needs to be going through this little slot here, but for some reason it doesn't want to fit. Okay. So what we're going to do, make this a little wider. Maybe it's just some flash on it. There's a battery here. And now it fits. Okay, so there's one locating pin. The whole board's held in place by just one screw. This one here is the hole with the screws in. This one is just a locating pin, and these are just also locating. They don't do much. So let's see. Here's the battery. I want it to come out right here. So let's see if I did this right. Cover back on. There's one hole in here where the antenna goes through, like so. And this is where I wanted the battery lead to come out. Good. And then the suspension goes back in at the same time. It slides in between the chassis and the cover. And oh man, it sits in these little cups. It's the funniest thing, but it seems to work. So now we got that in, but now we got the the rear spring all jacked up. So the rear spring has a, I don't know how well you can see it, but it has a little seat at the bottom of the axle. Little boss there. That's what the spring sits on. Okay, so we can show these are the motor cables. They're not in the way of anything. Good. Now suspension looks like it's in place. It all clicks back together. And now putting 4 screws back in. These tiny little guys. Oh, I forgot to put the board screw in. Darn it. Take it back apart. explain to you which hole is for the board, and then didn't put it in. So that's what you get. Okay, so back to this state. I forgot the little screw here. Holds the board in place. I doubt it's necessary. It's also tiny. Really, even if the screw isn't in, it can't go anywhere. But it was in there, and we can put it back in. Make sure everything sits properly. It does. Now we get the joy of doing this one more time. So cable goes through the hole in the cover. I'm actually going to tuck the motor cables into another cover while I'm at it, like this. And now we are back where we were, all back together. Suspension is nice and free. And now we're putting these 4 little screws back in. There's one. There's 2. There's the 3rd. Here's number 4. So now I was thinking, putting the battery up here somewhere. Yeah, should work. Putting double-sided tape maybe. I was thinking about even putting shrink wrap on it, but to make it not, make it like look black. I'm gonna leave it as is for now. Put a little bit of double-sided tape on it. Tape it up there. Right, so what I do is I just put it on, stick the battery to the tape, and then cut it around. So now we have the battery with tape on it. Hang on. To clean up. Not that it matters, but clean it up a little bit. Right, so on like this. Again, not ideal. I wanted it to be in the cavity, but oh well. All right. Give it a whirl, see if it works. So the car came with a set of tiny little batteries. Again, they're very likely equally as old. I'm gonna actually see if they're any good still. I have this little battery tester. Very cheap little thing, but does the trick. Let's see if these batteries are still any good. Nah, not great, but they should work for this. So let's put the batteries in, the controller, and see if it works. Controller, so batteries in the handle style, in the grip. Little Phillips screw to get it out. And then the pattern at which these go in is actually printed on the back cover. So first one here is plus is down. Next one here plus is up. And then next one here plus is up. And the last one here plus is down. So now it matches this pattern here. Put the cover back on. I think the car goes on first, so let's see if the car turns on. Car turns on, radio turns on. I think it's binding, and it works. All right, let's put the little body back on. And those pins must have been the smallest pins I've ever seen. They're so tiny. So yeah, I can't get them on without tweezers. Very tiny. So pins are on, and then we have a little I realized that on slippery surfaces it's just too light to have any real traction. So it does pretty well on a little bit of a carpet or something. And then for the charging, I'm going to turn this back off. This switch has 3 positions. On is up, off is in the middle, and the bottom is charging. And yeah, cable goes in like this. They have a white dot and a white dot here, so line those two up. Plug it in, and then switch this to charging, and the green light comes on, and it's charging. And now we have a functioning little car. Thanks for watching. See you next time.